So I posted my original story on 7 different websites, which I don't recommend you do. Half the reason I did this was so I could make this video, but I will get to that later. So to quickly explain, what are these websites? Basically, it's like the YouTube of writing. Anyone, and I mean anyone, can go on, make an account, write a story, and then post it. Boom, it's there for the whole world to see. My writing journey started with fanfiction in 2014, and I still write fanfiction to this day. Eventually, I decided to finally start my own original story, which I then posted on Fiction Press and Wattpad in early January this year. Then, after writing a few chapters, I realized, man, I'm getting no views. Which was when I made the decision to go to other websites, as well as to try reach a bigger audience. Apparently, it's actually a very common thing to do. The 7 websites I will be discussing today is Fiction Press, Royal Road, Wattpad, Penana, Booksie, Movellas with an S in the back, not to be confused with Movella, which is a completely different website about sports, and lastly, and I'm sorry if I butcher the name, Quotev, Quotev,
Today, Junior?
Sorry, I'm just gonna say Quotev. I apologize if that's not how you say the name, but that's what I will be saying, or Quotev. So today I wish to talk about each website and things that stood out to me, whether it be good or bad. Disclaimer, I'm not an expert in these websites, so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Also, there will be a lot of bias, since this video will be heavily based on my own personal experience. So, let's get started. So here are some things that apply to all of them. In terms of simplicity, most of them are quite simple. Some may be more simple than others, but still simple regardless. Now, if you're completely new to these websites, I will have to warn you, they do not spoon feed you. This isn't a game, there is no tutorial, they won't explain anything. When creating your account, you are literally on your own. What is a journal? What does the rep button do? What are badges? What does any of this mean? Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is for you to find out by yourself, because even I am still learning. I have been writing on this website for over 5 years and I still don't know what half of these buttons do. I mean, I guess you could just ask someone on the website, but that requires socializing, so nah. One last thing is that these websites sometimes try a bit too hard to be different from one another, so they'll have different names for the same thing. For example, instead of chapters, Wattpad likes to say parts, Penana refers to them as issues, and Quotev prefers the term pages. Which, to be honest, isn't a problem if you're committed to only one website, like a normal person, but that was really confusing for me. So let's get started with the most important aspect when it comes to these websites, the viewership. Because let's be honest, that's what most of us care about. How much views did my story get on each of these websites? Now, before I get into that, it's important to note that each of these websites may have an audience that caters to different genres of writing. Just so you know, the story I wrote is a fantasy/action story, heavily inspired by anime, because I'm a weeb. Of course, views can also depend on how good the actual story is. With that said, let's see how well the same story did on 7 different websites. This year, in 2022, from the 10th of January to the 14th of February, which is the day I wrote this script, the first chapter of my original story has received 43 views on Fiction Press, 13 views on Wattpad, 10 views on Penana, 0 views on Movellas, question mark views on Booksie, 135 views on Quotev, and 259 views on Royal Road. Now, since I first published this story, I have written 7 chapters for this story. So in total, my story has received 0 views on Movella, 31 views on Wattpad, 83 views on Fiction Press, 105 views on Penana, 113 views on Booksie, 289 views on Quotev, and finally 1,458 views on Royal Road. Damn! So, yeah, it's pretty close. Now, of course, it's not all about the views. Let's talk about the websites themselves and what features do they have that others don't. Starting with Fiction Press. Fiction Press. This is the sister website of fanfiction.net, which is the website I grew up with. They are basically identical, but one caters to fanfiction and the other caters to original stories. Naturally, Fiction Press is a lot less popular than its sister. The viewership is kinda dead. Usually with websites like fanfiction.net, the more chapters you post, the more views you will get. There are 2 main reasons for this. One is that stories with more chapters are more likely to get clicks, and also whenever you post a chapter, your story is bumped up to the top of the most recently updated page, which by the way is the default setting for readers whenever they look into a specific category. But on this website, you could find stories with over 20 chapters and 0 reviews. I wouldn't be surprised if there were more writers on this website than actual readers. I can assure you though that fanfiction.net certainly has a larger audience. Now, enough about the viewership, how about the actual website itself? Now, most people will say that the whole setup of this website is really old and outdated, which I agree. I have written on this website for more than 5 years now, and there hasn't been a single change added to how everything is set up. But I love it. There is so much bias when I say that because this is the website I grew up with. But for me, it's so neat and simple. I started using this website when I was 13 years old in late 2016. And as a 13-year-old boy, I got used to this website very quickly. It was so easy for me to understand even as a kid. Even now, the other websites can feel like you're in a maze because each button always brings you to a completely different page. But here in Fiction Press, this section is always here for you to see. It makes you feel like you're always on the same page, which is a lot less overwhelming compared to other websites. It feels like you're just in a single room rather than a huge maze. With that said, let me explain what people mean by outdated and old. Besides how the website itself looks, there are also too many extra steps needed whenever you need to post or edit a chapter, especially compared to the other websites. Alright, so you have what is called a document manager. This is where you do all the writing and save your work. All of your writing is located here. Your drafts, your notes, your final copies, all of them are here. Alright, now here's the catch. You can't directly publish the document from here. After you finish writing, you then have to go to Manage Stories, click the story you want to add the chapter to, press Content/Chapters, click Post New Chapter, and then, here's the biggest part, you then have to scroll through your list of documents and find the specific one you want to publish. It's a very, very roundabout way of posting for all the other websites on this list. In a nutshell, all you have to do is write the chapter and then publish it. That's it. You also can't rename documents, neither can you reorganize the order. They're always in alphabetical order. This basically means that the document manager can get really messy and convoluted, especially if you are writing multiple different stories, because all the documents and chapters for that story will be mixed in here with all the others. Imagine you're working in an office, but instead of having a different file for each story, you have a gigantic folder that you stuff everything into, and you have to go through it every time you need something from it. And don't get me started on editing. Now, if you don't have a beta reader or an editor, you're going to have a lot of typos and mistakes even after you proofread. So it's really good that all of these websites give you the option to edit chapters that you have already published. Now, in like every other website, you click the chapter, press edit, make your changes, and boom, you're done.
Are you serious?
Yeah, we don't do that here. Here in Fiction Press Laboratory, we don't edit, we replace, which is a word that brings me so much anxiety. Basically, you first have to go back to your document manager, edit the original document, and then go replace the entire chapter with that edited document. And if you deleted the original document, or it deleted itself, you then have to press preview, copy the entire chapter, paste it on a completely new document, and then make the changes. In other words, you can't directly edit the chapter like every other website. Now honestly, I don't actually care about the extra steps. It's only a slight annoyance, and honestly it can be very convenient for those who want to rewrite their chapter. The real problem I have with this is that you could easily post the wrong document. In other words, you could mistakenly replace an entire chapter with a completely different one. I have made this mistake once in my life, and I didn't realize until the day afterwards, which traumatized me. To this day, regardless of which website I'm using, I always triple check whenever making edits, because I still have PTSD from that one day I mistakenly did that. Another thing I want to mention is that this website isn't friendly to its readers, ironically. You know how YouTube has a recommended section in case you don't know what you want to watch? Here, there is no such thing. Fiction Press won't recommend you anything. You have to do the finding all by yourself. This is also the only writing website that does not have a tag or hashtag system, making it even harder for readers to find the exact type of story that they prefer. Most of the time you will find garbage. And even if you do find a good story, there's a high chance that it was abandoned by the author. Yeah, I've been there too many times.
Yes! 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 No! No! No!
Now, it sounds like I hate this website, but actually to this day, I still write all of my drafts and chapters here, because the sister of this website will always have a special place in my heart as the first website that ever introduced me to the world of writing. Alright, testing, alright. Alright, next, let's talk about Quotev. Quotev? Quotev?
Lads, you could...
I am so sorry if I butchered the name, but I still don't know how to pronounce it. Now, I am very new to this website. In fact, on this list, the only two websites I was familiar with beforehand was Fiction Press and Wattpad, so please keep that in mind. The first thing that really grabbed my attention was the audience that I somehow swiftly gained from the very first chapter. In terms of viewership, Quotev easily secured second place. I would also like to point out that Quotev is one of the two only websites out of this list where I actually got a response from my readers. The response I got from this website was both positive and incredibly friendly. Honestly, that's pretty much the main reason why Quotev is one of my favorites that I highly recommend. Because regardless of how good the website is, writing and publishing stories can feel very pointless without any sort of response from your readers, and burnout becomes a problem very quickly. There's just something so motivational when you read actual comments of how much people are enjoying your story that you wrote yourself. I really do get a shot of adrenaline and dopamine every time I see a new comment, and personally, I believe a responsive audience is one of the most important things to have as a writer. So a few things that stood out to me was firstly, the customization of your profile. Now, with most other websites, the most you can edit on your profile page is the About section, and maybe you will even be able to add a banner. But on this website, there's a lot more that you can do than just that. This website gives you the option to change parts of the layout itself. You see this menu bar? You can alter which of these are visible to your viewers, which is why when you go look at other people's accounts, not everything is visible. Some people may choose not to show their library, messages, activity, etc. This is also a good way to distinguish who's an author and who's just a reader. Apparently, you can also change where your menu is located, the size of your text, and the color scheme.
Deploying flashbang.
There's also different fonts you can use, which I've actually seen a lot of other users use this in a lot of creative ways. There are taglines as well, which, similar to Discord, it's just a single sentence that goes under your name.
Okay.
Which doesn't seem like a lot, but it's actually really good when it comes to personifying your profile. It's a very quick way to get a glimpse of people without having to actually click on them. Surprisingly, this is the only website that does this. Here are just a few examples. And then you have me. By the way, this has always been my tagline.
Hey, it's me from the future. I wanted to come in and let you know that I discovered a few extra things about the taglines. For example, if you look in some people's taglines, you can actually put some sort of link so that when you hover your mouse over it, it just shows an image. And if you click it, it just shows you the image, and that's just the image. Another cool thing you can do is if you're reading some people's taglines and you notice some people, some words are like in blue and clickable, so you can press them and it leads to their journals. Now, what are journals? I will discuss that later on, but I just thought this was really cool. So yeah, you can make a journal and then link your journal in your tagline. And it's all on the same website, by the way, just to be clear. I have no idea how to do this, but that's really cool.
So the profile customization is definitely a huge highlight. Even though I might not use it, I can see so many people on this website having a lot of fun with this. It's a feature that I've never really seen on other websites. For me personally, it's stuff like this that distinguishes your website from others. Not because you replace the word views with reads, you're different because you have features that other websites don't.
Well, duh.
Pages. Now, instead of chapters, or even a word count, they instead use the word pages. From what I understand, it's basically the amount of pages your story would have if it was printed into a physical book. So my story at the moment has 30,000 words, which according to this website equals up to 84 pages. So roughly about 275 words per page. Okay, so at first, this seemed pretty pointless in my opinion, but then after I gave it some time to think about, not only do I get it, I think more writing websites should do this. In fact, Royal Road uses a page-by-page system as well. The reason why I think this is because it's a more accurate way to determine how long a story actually is. Because in every writing website, there is no limit to how many words you can put in a chapter. In other words, you could hypothetically post a single chapter that has 1 word or 100,000 words in it. I mentioned earlier that the story that I have written has garnered over about 30,000 words, over 7 chapters combined. In the past, however, I once wrote a single chapter that had 32,757 words.
Man, I was so passionate back then. I have no idea what that accent was.
So what I'm basically saying is that when you go on Fiction Press or Wattpad, just because a story has lots of chapters doesn't mean there's actually a lot to read. Vice versa, just because it has 1 or 2 chapters doesn't mean there's not much to read. So yeah, using a page system where it calculates how many pages your story would be if it was printed in a physical book is definitely a more accurate way to gauge how long a story is, which I think is a really cool feature. The writing itself is fairly simple. Like most other stories, the draft and chapters you write are confined to the story itself, so managing multiple stories is a lot easier. Overall, being a writer on this website is quite satisfactory. There is one last thing I want to mention. Writing or reading stories isn't the only thing you can do on this website. Journals. Now, I had to look at other people's accounts to see what journals are for, and basically, they're journals.
Well, duh.
But they're also kinda like blogs. People use them to either talk about their interesting experiences or talk about things like why I write, etc., etc. From my understanding, you have the freedom to write whatever you want here, even short stories. You can also join groups as well. But that sounds like you have to socialize, so I ain't touching that.
Hello, it's me from the future again. So I did a little bit of digging and there was a few things I wanted to add. So if you've ever posted a story on this website, you may have noticed a button called over here called authors, and if you click on that, you can read, it says here, looking for a co-author or editor? Visit the writing group. And if you click on it, you can see the writing group. You can choose to join the group, to post a topic, whatever. Now, from what I've gathered from this one group, it's basically, a community based. You can, oh my gosh, Discord. So what can you do with groups? Basically anything that involves interacting with, a community, the people in the group, right? So if you look here, people are asking for advice, they're sharing their stories, you can look for editors, you can look for co-authors, or perhaps you can even ask if anyone needs your help to co-author or write something. I tend to always write things myself. I can't imagine myself writing with someone, but that's really cool that the option is there. Another thing is like ideas, you know? People ask for opinions and ideas. That's a big thing about it. Yeah, so that's what groups are. Now, obviously, I don't think this is the only group on the website. If you look down here, there's a button for groups, and I can imagine that there are many different types of groups that each have, you know, their own purpose, their own like center. I'm not sure whether you can create a group yourself or whether that's... I don't know much about the groups, but from what I've seen right now from this, it's pretty good. So yeah, I just wanted to add that because in the original script of this video, I didn't really say anything about groups. So yeah. There is one other popular feature that this website offers, which is quizzes. Not gonna lie, I had no idea this existed on this website for a long time, which means I'm probably just blind. Now, I thought this section was in the minority, but on the contrary, it seems this website is more known as a quiz website.
So I typed in AAuto on this quiz website.
A quiz quad. Sorry, could you repeat that again?
And is actually less known for its stories. I could be wrong about that though. From what I've seen, you can make your own quizzes on basically anything. It all looks pretty smooth, and there seems to be a lot of interesting things you can do with it. Now, I haven't actually touched the quiz section. I've never tried to make one either, but if you want to see how they work, I recommend watching these videos. It's basically a wholesome couple doing Genshin quizzes. Really fun to watch, in my opinion.
Actually, if you're single and lonely, I would not recommend.
This might be one of the reasons why this website has a much larger audience compared to websites like Fiction Press, because there's a variety of things that you can do on this website, which certainly brings in people from all different types of areas. You might like quizzes more than stories, or vice versa, or maybe you like both of them. Honestly, it's just really cool to see a website try other new things, and I hope more websites do the same.
What is he doing?
He's beginning to believe.
Wait, I've only done 2 out of 7 websites? Ah!
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, koalas and giraffes, it's time to address the actual elephant in the room. Get out your suits, ties and dresses, grab out the bottles of champagne, the limousines, the gourmet dishes, the mayonnaise, because it's time we get fancy. Oh boy, where do we even start with this one? Yes, let's start with the biggest thing, shall we? Alright, so before I made an account, I was randomly reading the FAQs for the website, and almost instantly, one of the answers literally broke into my house and killed me with a shotgun. Alright, come closer, because you are not going to believe what I'm about to say. Come closer, let me whisper it gently to your ear. Okay, you ready? You know what, I'm actually just going to step back here and yell it, alright? Are you ready? I kid you not. These guys moderate their stories. Alright, so you know how in the beginning I said It's like the YouTube of writing. Anyone, and I mean anyone, can go on, make an account, write a story, and then post it. Boom, it's there for the whole world to see.
Well, not on this website, baby. They literally went, nah, we ain't gonna do that. We don't do that here. Basically, what I mean is, when you submit a story, you have to wait an entire 48 hours so that a real staff member can read your story and approve it. How do I know a real person actually read my submission? You see that female protagonist tag on my story? I didn't add that. I'm 69% sure that this was a staff member. I never added this tag to any of my stories until now. Well, because I forgot that was even a tag to begin with. Another interesting thing to note is that when submitting my story, I had to use something called a support ticket. Why? Well, you see, since I had already posted this story on multiple other websites, I had to provide evidence that this story belonged to me, of course, because apparently moderating your stories also means checking for plagiarism.
What?
This is one of the few websites where you might want to actually read their guidelines, because it seems these guys actually enforce them. You know, unlike a certain other website. This is the first time I have ever seen a website do this. And honestly, it's so good because it filters out all the trash that you loosely find on other websites. Now, don't be mistaken. You don't necessarily have to be a professional, expert, top quality writer to be approved. How do I know this? Well, because my story got approved. And if my story can get approved, then basically anyone. Although I will admit, when it comes to the readers, the bar of quality is set slightly higher than other websites, which, depending on you, can have the unintentional effect of making it more stressful and potentially less friendly, compared to websites like Quotev or Fiction Press, because there are slightly higher expectations. Not to say that there are no nice people. There are plenty of nice people that I've had the honor of chatting with on this website, but the bar is slightly higher. Now, when I said this website was fancy, I meant fancy. Here are just a few features. Viewers can give you a separate score for your style, story, grammar, and character. They have a ranking and a 5-star rating system. It calculates your average views. Each user has a reputation level. When reading a story, the website will save your progress and which chapter you were on. In other words, if you ever come back to a story, the website will put you exactly where you left off. They separate comments from the reviews, which I'm so glad they do, because in fanfiction.net, it's called reviews, but most people just use the reviews as a comment section. You're not allowed to comment or review a story unless you've actually read the story. They have achievements. Holy moly, these make me feel so good about myself. Viewers have a function where they can suggest edits for you if they spot any typos or think that they can have a better way of phrasing the actual paragraph. They have events. They have this thing called a write-a-thon, which I hope I'm saying that right, where they challenge you to write a certain amount of words in a certain period of time, and they have actual rewards for everyone who can complete the challenge.
And before you ask, yes, I just discovered that there is indeed a dark mode.
Yes, 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 yes.
But just to be quirky, I am not going to turn it on.
No, no, no.
I'm sure that just scratches the surface of just how fancy this website is. I still haven't fully explored this mansion of a website.
There's also a premium account that you can buy that gives you more features and stuff, but I'm not even going to touch that because I'm free to play. With that said, the free version for me is perfectly satisfactory, so you don't have to buy it. Actually, speaking of the premium version, you know the write-a-thon that I mentioned? Well, if I had actually completed the write-a-thon, which I didn't, I would have been rewarded with 1 free month of the premium version, which is quite generous. Along with that, if I had completed the challenge, I would have also been put on this list. My name and story would have been placed on this list. That basically gets displayed to the whole website. So basically, if you want to plug your story with zero shame, you have to complete this challenge. It's pretty cool. I think that's actually really cool that they do that because, you know, it gives more motivation to, you know, get people writing. And I believe there's also, not only for writers, it's also for people who leave reviews. They cater a lot to the reviews. Like, for example, like one of the challenges for the reviewers was that they had to review a certain amount of stories. So it's like they're catering to both sides, the readers and the writers, which is so cool. I have never seen a website like this, and I love it. There are so many quality of life improvements for both the writers and readers. It's amazing. The only downside I can think about is that the people on this website are probably too big brain for you. Literally, the first comment I ever received on this website was an essay. Wow, imagine giving honest, constructive feedback that can help authors improve their writing. What a joke. Thanks, Zen-kun. Now, besides that, let's talk about the viewership. I will be honest, I thought this was a dead website when I first saw it. I thought the community on Royal Road was tiny. Oh boy, how wrong I was. One of the top rated stories on this website has over 10 million views. Now, there's something I would like to mention. Out of all the websites on this list, Royal Road was the last one I posted on. Not to mention, Fiction Press and Wattpad both had a 2-week head start with 5 chapters in total. And as you know how things go, like the longer it stays there, you know, the more the views slowly increase. Sometimes they freeze, but like usually as time goes on, the views increase. Now, this is mainly because it took 48 hours for me to submit a story on Royal Road. But despite all of that, the viewership on my story on Royal Road surpassed all the other websites on the first day with just 1 chapter. Let that sink in for a second. Not to mention that my views are oddly consistent, which is so weird to see because on most websites, it's very normal to see a lot of views on the first chapter and then a huge drop from there. Or maybe I'm just a bad writer. You can also make money on this website.
I like money.
As far as I'm concerned, you can add in your PayPal so that your readers can donate to you if they are really enjoying your story and they want to support you. With that said, unless you're super famous, I obviously wouldn't count on it, you know, to make a living. Now, I hate to end this section with a sour note, but I do have one small, tiny complaint. To be honest, it's a nitpick, but it's a giant pet peeve for me. Now, in every website, you have a profile page. In this profile page, there's a section where you can describe yourself. It's like a bio. Here, you talk about yourself, what you do, you know, all of that. You know the drill. Now, for some reason, someone thought it would be cool to just give us 2 lines. 2 lines to write our bio. Why? The most important part of writing online is that you have space. There's no space here. Like, other websites have like similar problem, but this is the worst case I've ever seen. I change my profile quite often, and I've been writing on this website for about 1 whole month. I still can't get used to this. What is this? Who thought this was a good idea? I've had to write in a different place and then paste it here because it's impossible to write or edit anything on this. Why can't you just give us more space? And another thing was... Wait a minute. No way.
I wonder how, I wonder why. Yesterday you told me about blue, blue sky, and all that I can see is just a yellow lemon tree. I'm turning my head up and down. I'm turning, 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 turning around, and all that I can see is just another lemon tree. Sing!
I made it up to like the two
I know
parts
what the question
with,
mark means.
by the way, Lich, Lili, do you think I'm what? No, I'm not stupid.
No, I don't think anyone here is.
By the way, Lich, Lili, do you think I'm yes.
Yes, Nathan.
I wonder how, I wonder why. Yesterday you told me about the blue, blue sky, and all that I can see is just a yellow lemon tree.
Okay, but still, why is this the default setting? Alright, I think we are about halfway through this video. Now, if you thought the quality of the video was bad enough, you can expect it to go downhill from here. What I mean is that I don't have much to say about the rest of the websites on this list, especially compared to the 3 websites I have already covered. I'm sure you can already tell just from looking at the timestamps. This is because the rest don't really stand out to me. I'm sure there's a lot more to cover than what I'm about to say, but frankly, part of me just really wants to get this video over and done with. I think it's safe to say I was being a bit too ambitious with this video. You may have noticed that there's a significant gap of time between the day this video was posted and the day I wrote the script for this video. It's suddenly dawning on me that I could have posted 3 videos in the time that it took me to finish half of this video. So let's just say I don't think I will be making videos like this for a while. Now, I want to be clear that I'm not saying that any of these websites are inferior or superior to the others. This video is heavily biased since, you know, I have gotten 0 responses from the other websites. I'm sure if you got a following and many responses from your readers on any of the other websites, your experience would be incredibly different from mine, but more on that later. My top 3 picks would be the 3 websites I just covered. Fiction Press being 3rd, Quotev taking 2nd, and Royal Road conquering 1st. Probably don't choose Fiction Press since it's quite outdated. Even though it is my favorite, the outdated system is something I am used to, but I don't think it is something you will like. And if Royal Road is too fancy for you, I do recommend Quotev, as it can provide a much more relaxing atmosphere, at least based on what I have experienced. Alright, without further ado, let's speedrun the next 4. Penana rhymes with banana, and my super spider senses are telling me that that was done on purpose. The writing on this website is just as good as all the other websites on this list. It does the job well and it's very easy to learn. Now, there is one thing though that really kicked this website straight to number 4 on my list. This website has a section for writing contests. But here's the best part. These are not official writing contests. As far as I'm concerned, these contests are made by the users themselves, the community. This looks really fun. I haven't tried it, but when I get the time to, this is something I totally want to try when I get the time. Imagine how much practice and how much ideas you can get from doing this. Most of them are, but not limited to, short stories. So it won't take much of your time and it's a fun one-off thing that you can do. It's even better when you realize that a lot of official writing contests loosely require you to pay an entrance fee. And it's also a great way to meet new people and spread your writing. If I'm not mistaken, you can even set up your own contest and write your own prompt and be the judge of your own content, which again sounds really cool. Out of all the 7 websites, this is the only website that can do this, so if that interests you, I certainly recommend this website. So yeah, moving on. Man, that was quick. Now, I wouldn't want this beautiful background music to go to waste, so I'm gonna use it in the next section as well.
Well, that's just lazy writing.
It's Morbin time.
Wattpad. Now, I'm sure we all know what Wattpad is. Loosely, this is the website that people think about when the word fanfiction is mentioned. It certainly has an interesting reputation. Just to be clear, Wattpad is not focused on just fanfiction. It has a section for fanfiction, but a lot of original work does come from there. Now, let's briefly talk about the viewership. It's definitely one of the biggest writing websites on the planet, and definitely the most well-known. With that said, a friend of mine once told me that if you want views on Wattpad, you gotta write lemons. Now, what is a lemon, you ask? Well, you see, a lemon is a bright yellow fruit that is famously known for being incredibly sour. Trust me, it has nothing to do with sex and pornography. Now, anyone who's been on this website will be able to tell you that here on Wattpad, you don't find lemons, the lemons find you. I'll have you know that the first lemon I ever read had no warning on it whatsoever, and was rated for children. In their defense, it was probably written by a child, which kinda leads to a weird tangent that I had when writing this script. So what happens if an underage minor writes content that isn't meant for minors? Is that illegal? Are they just not allowed to read their own writing? Anyways, moving on. Wattpad is an example of what happens when you don't do what Royal Road does, which is moderate their website. Now, believe it or not, did you know that on Wattpad's own guidelines, it states that a poem, shall we? What we remove. The following are not allowed on Wattpad. Sexual content on Wattpad. Pornographic content. Wattpad considers content to be pornographic when it exists solely for the purpose of sexual stimulation.
You don't say!
Age of consent. The age of consent is 16 plus on Wattpad. Any sexual content between characters must abide by this age of consent and not be in violation of Canadian law.
Fascinating.
Glorification of sexual violence. Wattpad classifies non-consensual sexual acts to include rape,
Wait a minute.
sexual assault, kidnapping for sexual purposes, or sexual slavery. The content cannot be encouraging or promoting of non-consensual sex acts. Sexual roleplay or messaging. Wattpad does not permit sexual messages or solicitation. This includes posting content which encourages sexual private messages on or off Wattpad, or posting rules for public or private roleplay that is intended for sexual purposes. Illegal sex acts. In accordance with Canadian law, Wattpad explicitly prohibits any content which describes illegal sex acts, including but not limited to bestiality, necrophilia, incest,
or child sexual exploitation and abuse material. Such content will be removed. Okay, on a serious note, it's way too late for Wattpad to start actually enforcing these because that would mean removing and banning 90% of their content and users. Now, don't get me wrong, there are diamonds on this website, plenty of them, stories that are really good. It's just really hard to find them. With that said, there are two things that Wattpad does that I absolutely love. The first thing is that you have the freedom to add images and videos anywhere inside your chapters. You can also link YouTube videos if you want a specific song to play during the chapter, which I love. I'm so glad other websites also do this, including Quotev and Royal Road, because yeah, sometimes it's good to copy other websites. The only issue with this, however, is that people tend to use images that don't belong to them or they're not free domain, which I guess on Wattpad doesn't really matter. People on this website loosely use whatever images they want without giving credit, because if I'm not wrong, no one is policing that, so no one really cares. But I do know people on Royal Road will check whether the images you are using are free domain or not, so do be careful of that. I love that in this section about Wattpad, I'm still talking about Royal Road. Isn't that great, guys? You should go on Royal Road. The second feature that I absolutely love, even more than the images, is the way readers can leave comments on specific lines in the chapter. This basically means that you can point out typos easier, and you can also get a live reaction from your readers during very specific moments of your chapters, which is something I always enjoyed. Reading the comments on certain lines while I was reading a story was one of my favorite things to do, because it was really cool to see how people reacted to, you know, the more dramatic moments of the story. It was just really cool to always see, and it gave you the feeling that people were reading with you, you know? It can also make certain special moments in a story feel more appreciated, because loosely with reviews, they tend to talk about the story in general, which isn't bad, of course, but so far I've only ever seen this done on Wattpad. I honestly wish more websites did this. This is by far one of my favorite features to have on a website, and I really wish more websites use that. With that said, there is one small downside to this feature. Basically, as an author, if you see that someone has commented on your story, in your chapter, right, and that you know it's clearly commenting on a specific line, and you see it here, okay, it's not going to automatically direct you to where that comment was. In other words, if you want to find certain comments, you have to scroll through your entire chapter just to find where the comment is, which, you know, as you can imagine, can get really frustrating. With that said, maybe there is a way to do it, and I just haven't found it like an idiot. Who knows? Another interesting thing to note is that you can earn money on this website. If your story gets enough views and you get enough attention, you can get it officially published. Although I don't really want to dwell on that because it looks complicated. I don't really know much about it. So, moving on. Booksie. Booksie is the only website among this list that, to this day, still has me asking, where am I going? There's just too much to go to, so I'm constantly getting lost in this website, and to be honest, I still don't know how I've managed to post all of my chapters. It does look old and outdated. Again, I want to clarify that I don't mind fanfiction.net only because I grew up with it, whereas in this case, I'm completely new to the website. It has a house system where you can join different types of houses.
I wonder where they got that from. Now, I'm kinda mixed on this. In a way, it's no different to just having categories. The only difference is that the categories themselves are created by the community, which is actually kind of cool in a sense. So basically you can make potentially any category as long as there's a group of people who are interested in it. Maybe category isn't the correct term to use. It's more like forming small clubs. And the entire website is like a festival where all these clubs are, and you can walk around to see and then, choose which club to post your story in. Now, in terms of viewership, you're basically limited to the amount of people who are in that house, but I could be wrong about that. Just to be clear, you don't have to join a house to read what they post. But as a writer, you have to join a house in order to post that story. It almost kinda gives an inclusive type of feel to it. Like in all other websites, it's like, it's all there for you and you are given the freedom to explore wherever you go. It's like a giant library. Whereas here it feels like the content is almost behind the door. Well, the door is not locked, but you can like have a peek into it first before reading anything. So on one hand, it's really good for the community because basically they make their own categories, and on the other hand, I don't know, it might limit certain stories to just the people who, who have joined that house and are interested in that house. But with that said, there are houses that have a lot of members, so maybe you want to target those. A small feature, a very small feature that I really do like on this website is that you can add a summary to each individual chapter, which again, I have not seen on any other website, which is really nice. It's a good way for readers to, want to go back and read certain chapters, but can't remember which chapter is which. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this website does have a premium version as well, similar to Royal Road, but again, I'm free to play. I'm not gonna bother putting the Genshin edits. Again, I'm not gonna touch that. So that's all I gotta say, to be honest. And moving on. Movellas with an S. Now, I'm pretty sure I've made that mistake already. If somewhere in this video you see Movella without the S, that's a mistake. It's supposed to have an S because there's a sport website that's called Movella. Don't get confused. Now, this is the only website on the list where I don't really like and will most likely abandon for a few reasons. First reason, I mentioned before that my story on Movellas got 0 views. Now here's the thing, I don't actually think it has 0 views. How do I know this? Because I have followers somehow. 3 to be exact. So I'm 99% sure that the views on this are either frozen or they just don't work. The second reason is only a problem if you are doing what I am doing, which is posting the same website on multiple websites. If you just stick to Movellas, this isn't a problem. But basically, so as I mentioned before, I write everything on Fiction Press before I then copy and paste on other websites. Now for some reason, when I copy and paste it into Movellas, it doesn't paste with the spaces between the sentences. In other words, every time I pasted on Movellas, I had to repeatedly do this for every single line in the chapter. Now, I was able to tolerate this. But then my third reason came into play. For some reason, I can no longer log into the website with my computer. It could just be my computer because it's an old computer, and I can also log in just fine with my phone, which is why all the screenshots you are seeing now are from the phone. With that said, I don't think I'm going to be writing on phone because that sounds like a nightmare. With all these things combined, I decided that it's a chore to keep an account on Movellas, so I'll most likely abandon it. In other words, that's right, you just got clickbaited. It's not 7 websites, it's actually 6 websites. Sue me, I dare you. Now, there is something called Mumbles on this website, which I think is just the website's version of Twitter. Besides that, this is the only website that doesn't really have anything special to it, in my opinion. The way you write and read is satisfactory, nothing wrong with it, which, I can say the same for every other website on this list. So yeah. with that, we have officially gone through all 7 websites that I posted my story on. Oh boy, that was a trip. Now, to end it off, I want to briefly talk about the idea of posting your story on multiple websites. I want to expand more on why I don't recommend you do it. Okay, well, firstly, why should you do it? Okay, and the first thing that loosely pops up in everyone's mind, and loosely the reason why I did it was to reach a wider audience. Now, is that actually the case? Well, kinda. I have actually learned that it's more about finding the right website that suits your tastes and finding the right community. It's more about that rather than, trying to reach more people. I found a friendly, welcoming community in Quotev and almost the perfect website in Royal Road. Royal Road, which does also have a community that is almost just as nice. Now, if you plan to ever do what I did for this video, I recommend abandoning all the other websites once you have found the perfect website for you, because posting on multiple websites will honestly just make things more stressful and hard for you, especially if you've gotten no responses at all from those websites. As for me, I'll be sticking to these 6 websites for now. I might drop more in the future, we will see. So why stick to just 1 or 2? Well, there are many reasons, but the main reason I can think of is the more websites you post on, the less interaction you have with each one of those communities that reside in those websites. At least this is from my experience in terms of, having enough time to do it. The first advice any teacher or professional writer will give you is, when it comes to improving your writing, they always say, read. Read as much as you can. The same logic kinda applies to these websites. It's kinda an unspoken rule that if you write on, let's say, Wattpad, you probably should also read other stories that people have written on Wattpad. It's like YouTube, If you want people to support you, you gotta support and watch other channels. Now, obviously, you don't have to do that. I'm sure there are many writers that don't read other stories on their websites, and many YouTubers that also don't, watch other YouTubers, mainly because, it's very time consuming. But I do highly recommend reading stories that have been posted on the website that you are using, which, as you can tell, can be very hard to do when you're juggling 7 different websites. Now, just to be clear, interacting with the community doesn't only mean reading other people's stories. It could just be from chatting, talking about ideas, and even asking questions. Most of these websites have forums, blogs, their own version of Twitter, all, are used as gateways to just chat and connect with other people on the website. Maybe that's the reason why I haven't gotten any responses on Penana, Movellas, Wattpad, Fiction Press, or Booksie, because I haven't made any attempt to socialize and connect with anyone who uses the same site. So I really do want to make it clear that I am not saying that, this website is better than this one. All these websites have ups and downsides. I am also no professional. I have no right to say which website is objectively better. I can simply state my opinion based on my experience. So, if you plan on writing your own original fictional novel or fan fiction, give them all a try and see which one you prefer. Or maybe it doesn't have to be these 7. There's a lot more than just 7 out there. There's a lot of websites out there that you can discover. Who knows? Maybe there's another big website like Royal Road that you and I have no idea about, and you could, discover that. And that is all I have to say. I can't believe I just said that. Anyways, my name is Nathan J. Writing, and thank you so much for watching this video. Bye bye.
Oh? You're still watching? Well, I'm not sure what you were expecting, but all I'm gonna give you right now is, the classic shameless plug. Wait, before you leave, I'm not gonna be advertising one of my other videos. In fact, I'm actually going to be plugging the actual story that I wrote and posted on these 7 websites. The link for each of these websites will be in the description below. The story itself is completely identical throughout all 7 of them, so feel free to pick whichever platform you prefer to read on. Now, it's called I'm Not an Angel, I'm a Knight. Now, just to be clear, yes, I am a fanfiction writer, but this is not fanfiction. This is an original story written by me. Instead of, trying to sell it to you, because, honestly, I could go on for another hour. Maybe I might just make a completely different video talking about that, but for now, I'm just going to simply read the blurb that I wrote for this story. Upon his defeat, the Demon Lord placed a curse on the entire land that infested it with thousands of clones, fakes as they call them, of each of the 9 heroes who defeated him. Our main protagonist is not one of those 9 heroes. Rather, she is one of those fakes who, after realizing that chasing after the original was foolish, decides to change and become her own self. Now, my writing isn't professional or what you might call experienced. I am currently in the middle of studying creative writing at university, so I'm definitely still improving, but I won't say that it's terrible either. In fact, I would say that my writing exceeds most fanfiction writers, which I guess doesn't really say that much, does it? But the only thing I do have to admit about this story is that I did fall into the trap of info dumping in the first 2 chapters, which is something I do plan to go back and rewrite eventually, but I promise that the story does pick up after the 3rd chapter. I would certainly appreciate it if you could go and check it out and, just give it a chance. Anyways, this video is long enough. Bye!